Hello everyone, and thank you for viewing this talk. My name is Irini Geoarchaeology and I'm a PhD student at Leiden University. Today I used geoarchaeological results from Umhlatuzana rock shelter to underline the importance of context for understanding aspects like assemblage integrity, chronology, and preservation of a site. In an old Eastern story, blind people are trying to understand what an elephant is. Putting their isolated observations in context is crucial. Archaeological context is equally important for an unbiased reconstruction of human behavior. To demonstrate this, I first address context-related issues at Umhlatuzana rock shelter. Umhlatuzana is located in KwaZulu-Natal, South Africa, and is one of the few sites with a sequence that spans the Middle to later Stone Age transition. This makes it an important site for documenting this drastic technological reorganization in Southern Africa. The site was first excavated in the 80s by Jonathan Kaplan. The continuous sedimentary sequence and the high fine density provide a unique opportunity to study the development of modern human behavior. It also provides an important point of comparison for sites like Border Cave and Sibudu that have a discontinuous record and lack some of the technologies represented at Umhlatuzana. The stratigraphy is characterized by clear boundaries within the Holocene and no visible boundaries within the Pleistocene. The southern lower part of the deposits appear darker in color due to a higher moisture content. Kaplan suggested that because of a large slumping event, Pleistocene sediments were post-depositionally displaced. Here is a model illustrating Kaplan's suggestions. Pleistocene sediments are accumulating. The stars represented the position of archaeological artifacts. At some point, a large slumping event occurs and part of the sediments are displaced. Now Holocene sediments accumulate. The overall result is that part of the finds are displaced. In consequence, the archaeological community has been skeptical about incorporating the site's archaeological material into the general discussion on the Middle to later Stone Age transition. As an example, a well-regarded Southern Africa archaeology book clearly mistrusts the Umhlatuzana assemblage. We conducted renewed excavations to clarify the site's formation processes. We followed high-resolution excavation techniques supported by 3D spatial measurements to achieve the optimum context control. Rather unexpectedly, we could not support Kaplan's statement that the sequence underwent any large-scale sediment movement. We base our findings on three arguments. First, the three-dimensional fine distribution indicates that the Pleistocene deposits demonstrate discrete higher and lower fine density layers. In the case of a slumping event, we would expect disturbances in this layering. The figure illustrates the results of cluster analysis using GIS software. Our second argument against large-scale movement is that the geochemistry of the Pleistocene sediments demonstrates gradual changes. This is the result of XRF, pH, and magnetic susceptibility analysis on a tight grid across the profile. In the heat map, you can follow the gradual changes in silica. Micromorphological analysis allowed us to study the stratigraphy on finer scales, zooming in from the side view to the view of a sample slab, the thin section, to the study of micrographs using a petrographic microscope. Fabric features indicating large-scale sediment movement were not observed. Instead, there are indications for small-scale sediment mixing due to bioturbation. The main represented bioturbation features are voids, infill channels, insect excrement, and root tissue remains. Small-scale mixing is also indicated by moderate amounts of intergrain scatter from OSL dating results. The bioturbation that we see in the thin sections is mostly the result of insect, worm, and floral activity. Antline pitfalls are visible on the rock shelter ground, and so are non-active termite nests. In addition, roots from trees on the periphery of the site occasionally penetrate the excavation area. So is bioturbation enough to cause large-scale artifact displacement? Sometimes yes, but at Umhlatuzana, we suggest that the post-depositional movement of larger finds is no more than a few millimeters. This is also supported by the results mentioned earlier, while a more thorough fabric analysis of the finds is underway. The fact that the archaeological assemblage at Umhlatuzana is relatively intact is very important for the ongoing discussion about human evolution and modernity in Southern Africa. With this in mind, the material excavated in the 80s should be revisited and included in general archaeological debates behind the Middle to later Stone Age transition. So what is the take-home message? Stratigraphic assessment is a major factor in the interpretation of the material culture of a site. The original assessment is rarely put to test. At Umhlatuzana, the stratigraphic context turned out to be better than expected. In other cases, the opposite is true. Everyone knows that context is important for archaeology. In practice, context-related issues are often only superficially mentioned in publications. I suggest it is about time to start implementing geoarchaeology much more widely, not only by occasionally consulting a specialist, but by making them an integral part of the research team. The advantages of geoarchaeology are not limited in checking the integrity of the finds. Material culture remains can be in the form of anthropogenic sediments. This is the case in the Harz. Biogenic remains such as phytoliths and diatoms can also be studied using micromorphology. The same goes for raw materials of lithics. As a conclusion, the way to the future of archaeology is to understand the stratigraphic provenance and to conduct interdisciplinary studies whose results are not disconnected from each other, but are instead integrated to achieve an accurate interpretation of past human behavior. On behalf of my co-authors Gerrit Düsseldorp and Hans Huisman, I would like to thank you very much for following this talk. We also want to thank the ISHI 2021 conference organizers and all of our collaborators. I'm looking forward to your questions and hope to see you all soon online or in person.